Hello! In this clip from our Justia webinar, Build Your All-Star Team with Inclusive Interviewing, Amal Yassin will teach you how to spot opportunities to successfully promote equity within your law firm. If you want to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
All right, here are some everyday opportunities to promote equity, because this is going to be so key. Everyday opportunities. The opportunities are always all around us if we would only take them. And it's a muscle. I am still working on it. I'm a DEI consultant. I'm still working on speaking up and developing these skills. This is a lifelong journey. It does not end. It's a lifelong. Okay, so you're hearing recruiting deliberation. You're in the room when they're figuring out like the recruiting strategy. Are you advocating for expanded recruitment at law schools that were not formally targeted? Are you? Or do you look at just this list and say, oh, it's the plain same list of 10 schools or 15 schools and we're just going to go there and we're not going to go anywhere else? Are you someone who's in the room saying, listen, there is talent everywhere. Let's expand the list. If we do not have money to fly someone out there, why don't we at least partner with the school for a virtual meeting or virtual open house, right? There are plenty of ways to achieve this when we're creative, but we only become creative when we set the intention. Are you monitoring the percentages of diverse candidates that are being interviewed? Are you warning against fit tests? I'm asking you, if you were in a meeting and they talk about fit, and fit is this superficial, do we love baseball, etc. Like, if you want to say fit, the fit has to be in terms of values. It has to be fit in terms of work ethic. It has to be a fit in terms of higher level things that actually have something to do with the work product, right? Not the superficial, we like the same team, and we can talk about the good old days at, our alma mater. Something deeper. Policy discussions. Have you advocated for disability inclusion and accessibility? Does the bathroom policy reflect LGBTQIA plus inclusion, right? So LGBTQIA plus, it's getting longer. So I'll explain each. L for lesbian, G for gay, B for bisexual, T for transgender, Q for queer, I for intersex, A for asexual, P for pansexual. Right? Okay, good. Do your maternity leave, paternity leave, and caregiving leave policies ensure equity? Right? Meaning that fathers need to take off too, mothers need to take off, caregiving people need to take care of their elderly relatives. Are you ensuring that these are aspects of your culture? And is your bereavement leave sufficient? So important now. We're post-pandemic, but as you all know, many people are dealing with long-haul COVID and various issues. You've seen the reports, I'm sure, about the COVID pandemic literally shortening the lifespans of Americans, of course, with the people that have already passed, with the COVID long-haul symptom that many people are experiencing. This is still a tense time. We really need to speak candidly and about bereavement to make sure that we have bereavement policies that are ensuring a more equitable environment. Okay, next up, how you can be an upstander. Strategic planning meeting. Okay, so I want you to think when you are planning your law organization's future, are DEI a part of that? Do you have goals, right? Are metrics being monitored in terms of your expansion? And I want to say metrics in a very broad way, especially as we are in a time of, let's say, instability, as we are in a time of change surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion because of major Supreme Court decisions that have come down. But we want to make sure that as we think about DEI and inclusion, we're speaking very broadly. So a metric that could be monitored is that every year you're expanding to more and more law schools, right? That could be a part of your general strategy. We're going to make sure that when you think about DEI, you're thinking about it very broadly, not just in terms of numbers. Do we have 50% female lawyers, 50% male lawyers, or what have you? Not just in terms of numbers, not just in terms of race and gender, which are traditional categories, but also in terms of disability, also in terms of, geography, etc. Very broad. Evaluation and exit are evaluation rubrics being used. So we discussed that before, that if we're going to have interviews, we want to make sure that we have rubrics for evaluating those interviews. We have questions, and we're asking people the same questions, and we really are being very clear-headed and objective when it comes to the evaluation. Is there a clearly articulated process for challenging evaluations? So you remember my slides from before about the Thomas Mayer memo. So you are, in real life, someone who's like the African-American Thomas Mayer, and you do a memo that's just as good as Caucasian Thomas Mayer's memo, and you realize that you have a 3.2, and if somehow this comes to your attention, this other person has a 4.1. What is the strategy within your organization? Does everyone know that they can challenge it? That they can say, no, this is unfair. This is what this is what I have to show you to show that it's unfair. Is that known? Is that being spread? Is that knowledge? Is that process being spread? Or do people feel as if they get the 3.2 and there's nothing they can do except leave? We're talking about recruiting and retention as a part, and interviewing for inclusion as a part of a general recruiting and retention strategy. What is the way in which they can challenge these evaluations? The diversity committee review terminations before they are final, and to ensure that bias is not at work with the bias is not at work with the termination. And next up, do employees who are leaving engage in exit interviews, and are questions surrounding whether they felt included and a sense of belonging being asked? So we can gain a lot of information from exit interviews, so much, right? Which will help us to have a clearer understanding of where we need to go with respect to inclusion and equity within our organization. If we are not being serious enough to ask what's going on and why people are leaving, and again, I cannot guarantee that you are going to get honest answers, because very often people say, hey, don't burn your bridges, just act as if everything was amazing and you just had to change your part. But very often, or in some cases, you will have honest answers, but you need to seek them. And that in itself, right, by leaving a process, by an exit going smoothly, and an exit interview to make sure that the person had the best experience they could have had within your organization, that helps tremendously, because the person will speak highly of your organization, and word will spread. And that will increase the number of people who are interested in your organization. That will certainly increase your reputation, right? Okay, great. Now, when it comes to on the client side, reviewing cases, some of you work at law firms where there are pro bono opportunities. Some of you may work at nonprofit organizations that are always doing pro bono work. Whatever it is, there's always the ability to ask, are we targeting the underserved in some capacity? Are our legal services being promoted in less obvious communities? Are potential clients aware that our organization is culturally responsive and that we are devoted to equity? These are questions to ask. These are all ways in which you can be disruptors and upstanders within your community. And then we have the everyday indignities or microaggressions. One question is, has a policy surrounding how microaggressions are reported been clearly articulated? Meaning, if I were to go into your organization and speak to a random person, and I ask, if you were to experience a microaggression, a micro insult, micro invalidation, micro assault within your organization, what would you do? Would they know? Some organizations have diversity ombuds These are people who are separate from the organization, who have like a hotline, so to speak, where someone can call and express what happened. And that ombuds serves as a liaison, letting the organization know what happened in serving in a mediation sort of capacity. If your organization has an ombuds, do people know about it? What do they do when these things happen? Very important. Has everyone within your organization received training on microaggressions? Are they even aware? Are they probably saying insensitive things all the time? And I want to say this. We all will say insensitive things all the time. The landscape in terms of microaggressions and in terms of language is changing drastically. Drastically. I mean, you all have seen it yourselves. When I first started in DEI in 2015, pronouns were not as huge as they are now. The singular they was not as it is now. I don't think I knew the singular they in 2015, right? Things are changing drastically. The language that we use, I give people some of these examples all the time. Before, it was perfectly appropriate, and many of us would not have thought twice about saying the phrase committed suicide. Fairly recently, right? I was a little behind, confession. Maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, I was informed and learned that the phraseology should be death by suicide and not committed suicide, because committed suicide sounds like a sin, like commit a sin. It makes it seem as if it's an active act, rather than the fact that depression and various mental health challenges are real issues, health issues that take away people's life in the same way that coronary heart disease takes away people's lives. So there's a different understanding now, which has caused the language to change. 10 years ago, this wasn't it. This was not, this wasn't in the forefront. That said, we all need training. We all need consistent training, and we need to create this environment where we can be resilient in the face of these issues at this rapidly changing time, rapidly changing, right? So have the people within your organization receive training on microaggressions. And I'd be happy to join you and do that training. Has the training been reinforced with repetition? I have clients that we do it 1 year, we do it the next year, we keep on going. We repeat it, we do it so that we can continue to learn and grow. And then I was mentioning this before in terms of our ombuds program, where you have someone who's specifically dedicated to serving as a mediator. Really, really, really important. All right, I'm going to go through, before we come to our conclusions, some of the opportunities for being an upstander. You are going to be in a recruiting deliberation not too long from now. And I want you to expand the opportunity any way you can. Are you advocating? And I want you to advocate for an expanded list of law schools or of geographies, places, so that more people can have an opportunity, because you need that wider base in order to get anywhere. Are you monitoring, right, that recruitment? Are you monitoring those efforts in order to make sure that you're successful? Are you warning against fit tests, right? Are you advocating for disability inclusion and accessibility? What does that mean? It means that you are ensuring that your organization would be able has a sign language interpreters, that they are on call, so to speak, so that if it ever arises, you are prepared. That you have policies in place to make sure that people are getting the accommodations that they need. That you have a bathroom that's accessible. That your whole entire office is accessible. You're working towards those things. These are work in progress. Rome was not built in a day, but you need to set the intention for it to even begin. I have a colleague that often does these programs with me within my company who discussed, this is terrible. She's in a wheelchair due to an injury that occurred shortly after she was born. So she was born, spinal cord was spot, but due to malpractice, she lost use of her legs very early. She discussed going for an interview after, a law school interview, and she said there was no elevator. And she literally could not even get upstairs to engage in the interview. Horrible. So we all have to think about these things. How exactly does inclusion and accessibility look within our organization? How are we doing? Does the bathroom policy reflect LGBTQIA plus inclusion? Do you have gender neutral bathrooms available for someone to use? It depends on how far you take it. I've heard of men's rooms with tampons and sanitary napkins available because there are trans men who still menstruate. Organizations have that sometimes. Some organizations have that. These are things that we need to just consistently think about as we keep on trying to move towards that never-ending goal, more inclusive society, and certainly more inclusive legal organizations, more inclusive organizations devoted to justice. Again, you're evaluating your maternity leave and paternity leave and various leave policies. You're looking at your bereavement leave. You need to create this. So I know this was about interviewing for inclusion. We certainly did go through interviews, but we want to make sure that after you interview for inclusion and people are there, you're able to retain them. Right? This is a process. You're thinking about your diversity goals with your strategic planning, your metrics that are being monitored, your evaluation rubric, your articulated process for challenging evaluation. Some of you who are doing this program who are in HR, I would love for you to just do a test. Just go to someone random and say, do you know what to do if you experience a microaggression? And you can explain to them what a microaggression is. Do you know what the process would be? And just see. Because it's one thing to articulate it, it's another thing for it to be disseminated far and wide so that people are actually availing themselves of it. Diversity committee review of terminations before they're final, making sure that you are asking these questions during the exit interviews about whether people felt included. And you can phrase it this way. Is there anything else that this organization could have done in order to foster your sense of belonging? So it's not a criticism, but it's a solicitation of feedback to provide an opportunity. We have our reviewing cases, whether underserved communities are being served, whether your pro bono legal services have a broad outreach, whether clients are aware that your organization is, let's say, LGBTQIA plus friendly, or that it's culturally responsive, if you have people within your organization who can translate and so forth. There's so many ways, right? And then, of course, we've already discussed all of these in terms of your microaggressions policy and your training.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more law practice and legal marketing videos. See you in our next clip.